Are we streaming? Are we streaming? Uh-oh. Come on, YouTube. Show me a picture. We're streaming! Hey, everybody. How's it going? So today I was about 25 minutes into a video, and then I realized I ran out of disk space, and then I rage quit and decided to live stream it because I don't want to. I don't want that. The feeling of like talking for 20 minutes for no reason is just so painful. I'm not doing that ever again. I should check my disks more often to see that I ran out of space. But anyway, so today I want to read about this article. Well, I kind of don't because I already talked about it for 25 minutes into. Anyway, today I'm going to read about this article. It says European Parliament calls for ban on unpaid internships. This is an interesting one. I wanted to put so there's two comments I was going to read here, and then I was just going to explain my thoughts based on my experience. One says anecdotal, but I used to work in a bar in a huge tourist area in Dublin. Every day people would come in to drop resumes, and then the boss would come in, have them to come in for a trial day, so we got a free day's work out of them and then never contact them again. Literally a daily occurrence for free labor. And then another comment saying unpaid internships are legal but unethical. Not paying someone while training them is illegal, as what is unethical under Irish law. I wanted to talk about this a little bit because I have extensive experience here as someone who has been an intern at a place where I learned a lot, as someone who has been an intern at a place that was an intern mill that just saw them as free labor, and as an employer who ever since posting a lot of videos to YouTube showing how to do advanced electronics repair has almost daily requests for an internship. So I've kind of been on every side of this. I've been on the intern in a good place, intern in a shit place, and the employer side. And I thought it would be interesting to discuss this. So for me, a lot of people will tend to get this twisted and say, well, the reason that Lewis is for unpaid internships is because he is an employer. He wants to exploit people. Obviously, he's biased. He just wants to not pay people for their labor. But then they also get surprised when I say in my old internship video that I don't actually want to take on unpaid interns. I am simply saying I want the option to be available for others. And I also said in another video why I was against having a very high minimum wage. People will often assume that is because I want to pay people a very low wage. Yet then when they look at my starting salaries for specific jobs at specific skill levels, they'll notice that my salary list for many jobs is literally double that of a place like You Break, I Fix. So how is it that I'm paying literally double of a well-funded franchise, but I don't believe in a high minimum wage? So I want to really just kind of cover all of this in this and try to tie this all together in this video. And the one thing I'm going to ask is, it's two things actually. The first is, I would just do me the favor of listening to the entirety of what I have to say before commenting with your opinion. And the second is, try to listen to what I say rather than what you think I said. Because when it comes to any sort of hot button political or social issue, what people will do is they'll listen to the first 8 words, guess that what the opinion is for the rest of it, and then love or hate them based on that rather than what they actually said. So my experience with internships really dates back to 13 years ago. 13 and a half years ago now, actually. I'd got one building in the film center, one studio in the film center building, and it was a dump. It was a kind of crappy studio, like a lot of small, low-budget rooms, and one of the people who had it really just, in my opinion, saw the interns as an intern mill. If you just so happen to learn something while you were there, fine, but it's not your right to expect to learn anything. And if you work 80 hours that week and don't get paid and, cover your own transportation, well, so be it. Hey, he chose he wanted to do it. He volunteered. I really hated that because the interns that were showing up clearly were there because they thought that if they did the right thing, that they would learn something or that they would move up in the industry. And they showed up with this idealistic mindset of, oh boy, I'm going to get started in the music industry. Yay! And then they got greeted with buying orthopedic socks for the owner and, cleaning out the fucking air vents in his office and cleaning out the, liquid ducts for the portable air conditioners and shit. And for 2 months wouldn't really learn jack shit about anything related to a studio. And then so I understand the people that are aggravated at it. At the same time, I then moved on from that place to a studio called Avatar Studios. So Avatar Studios was, in my opinion, the best studio in the world. It used to be on 53rd Street and 10th Avenue in New York City. It is now owned by Berkeley. It will probably soon be turned into condos, and I will cry. But it was, in my opinion, the best studio in the world, by far. And 13 or 14 years ago, I got an internship there. I was tired of the crappy studio and I wanted to learn something, and I was willing to work 40 hours a week in addition to having a job and not sleep and torture myself for a short period of time so I could learn. So I went there, applied for an internship. I actually wound up interviewing with the manager. I think his name is Tino, and one of the people there was actually one of the people that I had contacted for a high school English class for my project. You had to contact someone who was in the field who did what you wanted to do, and I contacted someone, and I didn't even know it was the guy that worked at this studio, but it was the chief engineer, Roy. And I wound up getting the internship. It was $0 an hour. I was to work 40 to 50 hours a week, and I was cleaning toilets. I was cleaning faders. I was cleaning our musician puke when they had their 30th anniversary party. I was pretty much doing the job that nobody else wanted to do in every way, shape, and form for several months. And sometimes I'd be there 40 hours, sometimes I'd be there 50 hours, and I got paid shit. And this was obviously, this is not the ideal economic situation. However, the reason that I took that, I saved up my money from working at Modell's, because I was working at Modell's when I was 16 years old, back when I was still living with both parents, back when both of my parents still lived together because they could actually stand each other, but that's a story for another video altogether. That allowed me to work only part-time in another job, just long enough that I could make this internship work. And I was able to start there as a teenager that couldn't get hired at KFC, couldn't get hired at Staples, couldn't get hired at Best Buy, not even Geek Squad, normal salesperson, couldn't get hired at Apple, not even as a Genius Bar technician, as one of the normal people. I could not get a job anywhere. The only place that was willing to hire me at the time was the Modell Sporting Goods, putting price tags on basketballs for $6.1750 an hour. Yes, when you entered the union at Modell Sporting Goods, you got an additional 17.5 cents an hour, which would only counteract your union dues if you worked more than 60 hours a week. And people wonder why I'd have a bias against unions there, but that's for, again, another video. So I was unable to get a job, any even basic entry-level $6 an hour shit at the time. Like even $6 an hour, that was too much to pay Lewis. But I got this internship because I was willing to work for free. And I was able to, after proving myself for a month and a half or 2 months, one of the people in the tech room took notice and said, there's a lot of stuff that we need fixed. I get that you don't get along perfectly with some of the production assistants and other interns, but I think you get along with us. There was a seemingly cultural rift between the younger hipster kids, like the Bushwickites and the Williamsburgites that were kind of like the assistant engineers, and the interns and the production assistants, and the old school kind of like Italian 55-year-old plumber types that were in the tech room. And I started working in the tech room, and I was able to sit next to people like Ricky Began, Roy Hendrickson, Phil, and Gretchen, and just people who were the best in their field who fixed things for every studio in the world. And after a month and a half or 2 months of cleaning toilets and cleaning puke and cleaning shit and cleaning faders and literally just going through every switch in the console to make sure not a single one of them had any bit of static on it, I got to finally go in there and solder XLR cables. And then once they really trusted me, I got to solder headphones together. And after I went through a bin of about 70 fucking Fostex headphones and made sure that they all work, at that point, I was finally able to be trusted with a bus switch to an SSL J9000. And then after that, I was trusted with a 31102, then a bus module, and then a power supply to a Studer tape machine. You see where we're going here. Now, when I started, I really did break virtually everything that I touched. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but I said a lot of... Derek, wait, you got to chillax. I remember I lost my train of thought. Why did I read chat? The one thing I asked and you ignored it. Anyway, when I started there, I genuinely had no idea I had no sense of professional decorum. I had no idea how to talk to clients who were spending $3,000 a day. I had no idea how to deal with when an orchestra filled with people getting $250 to $350 an hour, that's $350 an hour, union wages, are all staring at you. And the producer is staring at you because they're supposed to be recording and they're not because something's not working, and you're the one in the room. Like, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that stress and not just break down if they're all staring at you as they're losing thousands of dollars an hour? I didn't know how to fix anything properly. I didn't know how to solder properly. And I kind of got to start learning that. You know, one of the things that stuck with me is when Phil Lipscomb and Ricky Began and some of the other people that worked there were there at like 2 or 3 in the morning. And my shift ended at 12, and sometimes I'd still be there at 2 or 3 in the morning because we hadn't fixed everything yet for the session that was going to be coming in at 9 or 10 the next morning. Cheers from Pennsylvania. Thank you. Well, one of the things that he pointed out to me was, this is in a studio where everybody used to write their name on a little piece of artist tape and then put it on the thing that they fixed. They actually used to label it. And there was a couple of trends. There was one which is, let's say, Pultec equalizers, where they would take the capacitors out of the DAT machines when they were too broke to afford the good ones and like just series parallel them all together to get it to work, and then write NFG, which stood for no fucking good on the main ones. Or like where somebody would do a really bad patchwork repair on something and they'd put a piece of tape with their name and the date, and then he would look at me and say, "Lewis, do you know why we're here right now at 2 a.m.? And I go, "I don't understand." "You know why? Because 23 years ago, this dumbass did this." And he would take it out, and he would show me the bad work in the little piece of artist tape that had said like PL and then a year or whatever, someone's initials and the date, and you would show me, "Look at this crappy solder joint," or "Look at this crappy work that was done here. Look at how bad they soldered this socket into the board," or whatever. The reason that we are here instead of with our families, or the reason that tomorrow the reason that someone thought they were recording a guitar solo today that was awesome, but was actually recording static, is because 23 years ago, this idiot did this. And he pointed this out to me because when I was 17 and 18 years old, I was very careless with my work. My work was complete garbage. I did not take pride in my work. I did not take pride in the idea that my work would be seen by others. I didn't take pride in the fact that when I worked on something, it would last. Ricky Began used to say, "I've worked here for over 25 years, and an XLR cable that I made 25 years ago is still going to work today. You're not going to have to fix it." And he went over his whole little routine for how he did XLR cables different from anybody else when he soldered the ends in this little specific way. He took pride in the work. And that was kind of beat into me over time. Also, his troubleshooting method. I got to sit next to him after 2 months of cleaning shit and listen to him go over his troubleshooting method. This was all very valuable to me. And the result of learning all of this was that I was able to then start my own company. When I started my own company, I knew how to deal with a frustrated customer who had low trust for me, because I remember dealing with the producer and the line of union musicians that knew they were getting paid by the hour, that were that were like staring at me, along with the producer that was probably responsible for the budget staring at me and everybody else when something didn't work, so that I didn't freeze up. I knew how to do the diagnostics properly, or like the mindset to take when I'm working on a new problem. I knew how to speak to people in a way that made sense. When I started at Avatar, sometimes I would say things out of turn to clients because that I didn't think were out of turn to clients because I was an 18-year-old idiot. And the reality is that I had went from being someone that literally a Best Buy, a Genius Bar, a Radio Shack, and a KFC wouldn't hire, to working at the best studio in the world and learning from these people. And that experience was incredibly valuable to me. It allowed me to fast forward from here to here, but it allowed me to kind of like really just kind of take a shortcut around all of it. The price to pay for it was that I got paid shit and I had crappy jobs to do. Now, I've heard it said that training in and of itself, and this is something that it was commented on here, which is that it says not paying someone while training them is illegal and unethical. And it depends on in my opinion, it depends on what it is you're learning. If it's just like, essentially, here is how to wash a dish at my store, and that's literally all you're learning. Or like they're pretending to teach you something, like my first internship, where people were cleaning out ducting and crap and like for 80 hours a week and not really learning much from the studio. That's kind of a hustle there. I get why people are pissed off at the unpaid internship. But here, what I find interesting is, I'm never going to forget it. There was one of these console modules, and it had PL written on it. And PL, I'm not going to say the name it stood for, but the people who work at Avatar know, stood for an instructor that taught an electronics class at the Institute of Audio Research in Manhattan around University Place and 11th Street. And I remember him pointing to it and saying, this guy got fired 11 years ago and we're still finding his fuck-ups. And he pointed to the horrible quality of the work and he showed me what made the work horrible. This person was teaching classes at a school that charged $9,000 to $18,000 for people to learn how to solder and learn how to troubleshoot audio equipment. He taught a class at Institute of Audio Research. This person that taught a class at Institute of Audio Research. So here's the part that I have a disconnect on. It's immoral to have someone have an unpaid internship where they learn. So for me to learn and not get paid for it, that's immoral. But if I go to a school or an institute or a trade school and I'm paying someone who's actually not qualified $13,000 out of pocket, that's moral. And that's the part where I start to get a disconnect here when I hear this type of rhetoric. I could have paid $13,000 to learn how to do the job wrong from PL. Or I could have paid $0, but just paid with my time to learn how to do the job from Ricky Began. And I think that, learning from Ricky Began was a much better bargain for me as I look back at my business, at the successfulness of my business, at the fact that I was able to, with someone with my low intelligence and my low brain power and my low skill set, get to a point where I can, instinctively, diagnostically troubleshoot and have this pattern recognition on boards the way that I do, to the point where I can recall tons of problems on a live stream and confidently, as I'm live streaming, fix a board, figure out what's wrong with it very quickly, and fix all my mistakes that I make in the process. It's really hard for me to square the circle of it's immoral to have an unpaid internship where the person learning is not getting paid, but it's moral for that person to spend thousands out of pocket for a certificate. Now, I understand what some people are going to say there. They're going to say that the unpaid internship doesn't always teach you something, whereas at least the institute, they're going to teach you something. A lot of unpaid internships, they just say, okay, we'll teach you something if you do this crappy work, but they do the crappy work and they never get to the teaching part. Oh, that is everywhere in the music industry. I'm not going to say that doesn't exist. That exists everywhere. It's very difficult for the studios to not take advantage of the fact that every Tom, Dick, and Harry is saying, oh, please, I'll shine your shoes, sir, for free, and have that attitude. I'm not going to say that taking advantage doesn't happen. But at the same time, it's really difficult for me to speak against the system that helped me get to where I am. So if I was able to start my business, if I was able to learn from who, in my opinion, are the best technicians in the recording industry, if I was able to get that position as a teenager with no education and no experience as a result of the unpaid internship, pet the cat, okay, I'll pet the cat, then what kind of hypocrite would that make me to speak against the unpaid internship now that I'm successful? Now, people often say, well, you're just saying that because you want to have unpaid labor because you're an employer. Well, I don't have an unpaid internship. I don't offer unpaid internships. I actually did a 15-minute video 5 years ago that has a lot of people calling me an asshole because I spelled out why I don't hire unpaid interns. It is my preference at my business to not have unpaid interns. If I'm going to teach, I would rather teach via this forum where I, on my own time, when I have free time, teach the world via video. That's what I'm willing to give. I'm willing to give you my time to, explain everything, show you how I do everything, give you a list of all the tools I use, and go through what I do when I screw up, which I often do. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to give you 600 or 700 board repair videos. I'm willing to classify them by type. I'm willing to make them available for free, ad-free on library, by the way, for anybody who's interested. And I'm willing to do all of that. I don't feel like offering an unpaid internship. So when people say, well, you're for the unpaid internship because you're an employer and that makes you greedy, I don't actually offer them. I don't want unpaid labor. I want people that are paid that then have some higher level of investment because it's their job. Now, and this is also related to my thoughts on minimum wage. People will often look at my pay schedule and then be surprised. They'll go, wait a second, I thought you weren't for a higher minimum wage because you were just a greedy asshole. I mean, if that's the case, then why am I paying people twice what they would get at You Break, I Fix, which is a better funded franchise? You Break, I Fix is better funding than I do, and they're paying people, in many cases, from the salaries that people are posting in my YouTube chat, they are paying people sometimes 50% of what I am and asking more work of them. That's not the case at all. Rather, when I was skillless, when I was clueless, when I had so few qualifications that a Best Buy would not hire me for an entry-level position, Radio Shack would not hire me for an entry-level position, Apple Store would not hire me for an entry-level position. Maybe that's why I'm so salty about Apple. I'm kind of half kidding there. Kidding. The unpaid internship was there. I had the option to say, listen, I'm unskilled. I will probably humiliate you in front of some of your clients. I'll probably break some shit that even a minimum wage employee wouldn't break. But I'm free, and I'll clean your toilets, and I won't, and I'll be quiet. And if you have shitty jobs for me to do that nobody else wants to do, I'll do them just so that I could be a fly on the wall. That ability to have that exchange, to have that, to be able to make that bargain allowed me to jump from 17, 18-year-old clueless hack to 20-year-old entrepreneur, 19, 20-year-old, I think is when I started my business, to having several employees in my early 20s, having a store with 6 or 8 employees in Manhattan by the time I was 25, 26. Probably, actually, no, it was probably 27. I'm getting the ages wrong here, but a little bit wrong at the time. You get the idea. To being at my age where lots of people may be starting their first business for the first time, and I'm already over 10 years into my business, I got to make that jump because I got to learn from the best. But those people were not just they weren't going to pay me $15 an hour to sit there and break Pultec equalizers. They weren't going to pay me $15 an hour to stand there when clients asked me questions and were very, very direct and stress-inducing in how they asked and have me give them stupid-ass answers. Because for, honestly, even $7 an hour, they could have gotten someone that would have been able to answer that question better. They would have gotten someone that could actually maybe solder something, that maybe understood what a transistor was. For free, they got a dumbass. They got an idiot. They got me. But they were willing to make that bargain at free. And the thing with minimum wage that's always gotten me is that the minimum wage is not what is written on the poster. For me, as someone who tried to get employed at a Radio Shack, at a KFC, at an Apple Store, at a Staples, at a Best Buy, and got declined all these jobs, the minimum wage is not what's on the poster. The minimum wage is actually zero when nobody thinks you're worth anything. The true minimum wage is zero. And when they say that training is getting unpaid training is unethical, no, in my opinion, truly unethical is when you have to pay for training, when you have to pay $30 or $40 or $60,000 for training because working alongside someone as an apprentice is made illegal. Now, at the same time, I understand why minimum wage laws exist, and I also understand why unpaid people look down on unpaid internships. The same with everything else. People abuse it. People, like my first internship's boss, will more than happily know that everybody walking in has these dreams of grandeur, these delusions of grandeur, that they're going to be doing these amazing things, that they're going to be, learn all this stuff and have this great stuff in their resume, so they know that they can drag that intern through a Shawshank Redemption sewer of shit just because they're going to take it all because they don't know any better. They just want to get their foot in the door. They want to learn. Everybody tells them that that's what they need to do if they want to learn. And they take advantage of it. And they abuse it. And that's disgusting. And that's wrong. And that's one of the reasons, honestly, I've never taken on, I'm against taking on unpaid interns because I don't ever want to put myself in a situation where there's a temptation to do that. I don't even want to give myself the temptation of potentially doing that. But I also understand that there are situations where people who are good at setting things up, who are better at structuring things than I am, like at Avatar, could also create a win-win situation for someone. I understand why minimum wage laws are there. I understand the argument behind it, which is that people's wages are doing this and expenses are doing this. Prices of houses are doing this. Prices of cars are doing this. Prices of any commodity is doing this. Prices of gas is doing this. Prices of food is doing this. Wages are doing this. I understand why people are aggravated, and I'm not even advocating to pay people shit. One of the reasons that I will pay more than a you break, I fix is because I don't want a you break, I fix level of engagement from my staff. If you walk into my store, I don't want you to be greeted by If Kevin gets paid what they pay at You Break, I Fix, he's not going to give a fuck about you. He's not going to care about your stuff. And the people that do get paid, the bottom tier here, I usually have a talk with, and I'll say, here's what's keeping you from reaching your potential, in my opinion. Or, you have potential. If you would like to start learning new skills and abilities, I am more than happy to pay you more. Let me know when let me know when you want to start doing that. Or let me know when you want to go from part-time to full-time, because I think you've earned it. I want the people that work here to care. I don't want someone to think to themselves, this came in for no power, I fixed it. Well, the U8900 chip looks bad. I'm not going to waste time doing that. Next. I don't get paid enough for that shit. I don't want people to have that mentality. I want the people here to have that mentality that Phil had at Avatar, where he's yelling at me saying, the reason we're here at 2 a.m. is because somebody 23 years ago or 27 years ago did a fucked up job. And we're not going to do that. I want to have someone who takes the same level of pride in their work that Phil does. And when I do find people that are skilled, that are good at this, that work at another company that's underpaying them, that's the greatest thing in the world. Because now I don't have to train you. Someone else trained you. And because they're greedy and because they don't want to pay you properly, now I can come along and go, okay, how about would you like to do the same thing you do there, but for 35% more pay? That's literally like you're already trained. You know how to do it. I can just drop you in here and now you're happy. I'm not advocating to pay people less. But what I'm saying is that I would find it very hypocritical if I were to cut off the bottom rung that allowed me to get into the field. So if I were to say, I think unpaid internships are immoral and unethical under every situation and should not be allowed, then what I would be saying is, hey, listen, I know that I was able to bypass a couple of steps here, and I was able to learn a lot when I was young, and I was able to, learn everything needed to start my business before I turned 19, but you can't. I'm allowed this opportunity. You're not allowed that opportunity. I'm allowed to save up my money from a year's working at Modell Sporting Goods back when I still live with my parents so that I have a cushion so that I can only work 20 or 30 hours a week paid while I work 40 hours a week for the internship for a month or two before I get hired. I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to make that trade-off for myself to get experience. But no, you have to wait outside Staples and Best Buy and Radio Shack and KFC, and if they don't hire you, well, zero for you. That would feel very hypocritical. I realize the bias that it must seem when a person who owns a business is saying, I'm not for a very high minimum wage, or I'm not for banning unpaid internships. Like, at first glance, it really does look like this person's a greedy piece of shit. Of course they're advocating for this because they don't want to pay people properly. But the reason that, as a business owner, that I don't believe in paying people the You Break, I Fix wage is because I used to work at Modell Sporting Goods. I used to work for $6 an hour, and I know more than anybody else exactly what $6 an hour gets you. It gets you someone that doesn't fucking care. So when I worked at $6 an hour, for the first 6 months, I really cared. I made sure that all the inventory in the back went out in the shelves. I made sure that if something was priced improperly, I looked through all the merchandise and I would rip it off and price it properly. If there was merchandise under the gondolas, those are the things, by the way, those things that, you put all the pegs on with the merchandise and they sit there. If there was merchandise under the gondolas, I would go to the company computer that looked like it was from 1979. I would search through their fucking antiquated system and do my best to match that product that didn't have a SKU up with the SKU so that I could put a SKU on it, put a price on it, and then sell it to make sure that the company made money. I made sure that even though we had a small department, it was Store 62, Modell Sporting Goods, that even though we had one of the smallest stores in the district, that all the stock was able to go out so that people could go through the aisles. Because if people weren't able to walk through the aisles, if they were filled with boxes, they wouldn't shop there. That would be decreased sales. I made sure that while I worked there, that they made more money, that there was more money coming into Sporting Goods department while I was working there than when I wasn't working there. And I took pride in that. And then 6 to 8 months later, when I said, is there any possibility for advancement? I'm not looking to get paid $10 an hour, $12 an hour, or $15 an hour, but right now I make $6. You get a raise when you get entered into the union of 17.5 cents, but there are also union dues, and the union dues come out to more money than the 17.5 cents unless you work over 60 hours a week. So is there any way, if I show that I can increase sales, or I can clean things, or I can organize something in a better way, can I get like $7.50? can you consider $750? And they said no. I remember exactly what I used to do. If someone looked at something and said, can I buy that? And there wasn't a SKU on it. And looking up the SKU would take 5 minutes of my time. But just ringing it up as a golf ball or a golf club when it was an entire golf set took 20 seconds of my time. Guess what I did? If there was a $200 or $100 basketball and it didn't have a SKU on it because it was ripped off and it was open box and someone wanted it, and it would take me 5 minutes to find the right SKU, but 20 seconds to ring it up as our cheapest $5 basketball, guess what I did? If there was merchandise in the aisle that I would get in trouble if it was on the floor, and I had a choice between finding the SKU to it or sweeping it under the gondola, guess what I did? Once you teach someone that they can add tens of thousands of dollars to your bottom line by caring about your business, and you still pay them the minimum that you are allowed by law to pay them, what you're telling them is what my personal trainer and friend often tells me, which is literally, if I were allowed to pay you less, I would. You are worth nothing more than the minimum to me, and you are going to get the minimum out of that person. That is why I advocate for paying people something better than that if they are worth more than that. If someone is worth more than that, if someone brings more to your business, don't give them $6 an hour. And don't give them the idea that there's no opportunity for advancement. It's in my own self-interest to not pay people that poorly. Because if I pay people that poorly, the work that they perform for my customers, the way they treat my customers, the standards of the work that they perform, the incentive structure they have to figure out new problems on new devices so that we can make more money, that goes out the window. And we go from being a world-class repair shop that everybody wants to show up at and meet us and send something to us. People see this place as like a tourist stop when they show up to New York City as a repair shop. We go from being that to being another fucking I fix and fuck up or you break, I fix, or whatever the fuck these franchises call themselves nowadays. I don't want to do that. It's not in my self-interest to do that. However, it's also, in my opinion, it would be fundamentally immoral if I said that there should be no unpaid internships under any circumstances and a $15 an hour minimum wage. Those two things need to go together. There's no unpaid internship. There's nothing I can do that someone who's 17 can do to become an apprentice to try and learn something when I took that very path to success myself. When I went from being someone that a KFC and a Genius Bar and an Apple Store and a Radio Shack wouldn't hire to be a cashier, to being someone who could run their own business that is now world-renowned, world over, that is able to pay several multiples of minimum wage to a group of over a dozen people, how hypocritical of me would it be to say, no, I'm going to take that ladder off the rung of success? I think that would be an immoral thing to do. I think it would be a shitty take. I also think that most people really don't look at both sides of the issue. They really just look at their ideological oversimplification. So if they are more liberal leaning, they don't really seem to notice that an unpaid internship is better than being unemployed and is way better than paying to learn. You know, like if I'm broke, if I have $0 in the bank and I'm living with a friend and crashing on their couch, I am more capable of trading my services of being able to clean toilets and being able to than I am being able to pay $9,000 or $13,000 to go to a trade school or going in debt to go to a trade school. They miss that part. People that lean on the conservative side that say the real minimum wage is $0. They also forget that there are lots of companies that take advantage of the unpaid internship, take advantage of the minimum wage. They move into a town where there's limited opportunity. They move someplace, or like let's say they wind up competing with every other business, destroy every other business in the town that actually pays people well. They're the only game in town now, and they pay people jack shit. Or they will do what a lot of the less scrupulous studios do, or companies, where they kind of imply that later on you'll learn something. They realize they're probably never going to teach you anything. They're stringing you along based on your idealism, and then they never teach you anything. They tend to miss out on the fact that the reason that these regulations get put in place that crush your opportunity to start are because other people were assholes. Other people abused it. Can I have the internship now? By the way, Mike B is the one that asked for an internship in the last video that I had to decline because in New York City, it is illegal. I need to give you $15 an hour or college credit. If you don't, I'm pretty sure I'm not able to give you college credit. And no offense, but if you don't know anything, I can't give you $15 an hour. Like, I'm happy to give you 20, 30, 40 bucks an hour. If you can fix drives that are clicking, we have jobs for you. We have jobs that pay $30 to $50 an hour if you can fix a hard drive that's clicking. If you can't solder a QFN, I can't even pay you $10 an hour. It's like, I need you to be able to do something. And what I think when this issue comes up is people too often fall into the ideological oversimplifications that make it difficult to come up with a solution that makes sense for everybody. With that being said, I'll read some of the comments. And we'll go from there. Unpaid Kitty would like his minimum wage treat. Unpaid Kitty doesn't get any wages. Tech Girl says, love you, Lewis. Gotta head out. Keep up the good work. Thank you. It's nothing but fair to pay people proportional to the value of their work output. I agree. Can I have the internship? I feel bad. Break things, tell us more. SSL J9000 at Avatar Studios. It is either channel 23, 24, 25, where the bus switches have ripped pads, and there's a Pultec that I dropped the tubes to. I can only admit that now because they were bought by Berkeley, and I have no chance of ever working there again. Logically, they need to ban universities first. Oh, this is for the service suggestion I received via email. Thank you, team. Thank you, KP. Studio and recording is the worst to work with. No, studio recording hardware is great. It's documented. You get schematics. Parts are available a lot of the time. Okay, maybe not for something from 1972, but you get the idea. At least when they were available. At least at some point in time, the parts were made available. Django says, please reiterate on setting standards. You once talked about how you give people with no qualifications a chance, but fire quickly if progression is not clear and present. People demanding paid internships forget that part of meeting increasing standards. I think that if you are looking for a paid internship, again, honestly, I don't see the difference between a paid internship and just hiring somebody. Like, I don't see where there's a lot of... how do I put this? So one thing that I think people miss out on is that in an unpaid internship, you actually... you're not actually free. So when someone... And this is important if you're going into any recording studio. It's important to really understand where they're coming from if you want to actually have a chance of getting the job. When I say something stupid to a client, it's paying $3,000 a day. They may have booked out the month. If they say, you know what, we're going to Electric Lady instead because he said this, that shows that you're not qualified and I don't feel comfortable having my orchestra work here because they're getting paid $350 an hour times 20 or 30 musicians, you may then lose the studio $90,000. If I screw something up, if I trip over something, if let's say channel 23, 24, 25 on the SSL J9000 that's sitting in Studio B has fucked up bus switches because someone drank all the Chardonnay that Rich Costi left in the refrigerator because he used to leave 2 bottles every night and then wonder why there was only 1 left. And I was a teenager, man. Don't fucking judge me. But that's going to reflect badly on the people working there. They're going to want refunds. They're going to want refunds in comps for their time. If you say or do the wrong thing, you're not free. You're really not. Just because you're willing to clean a toilet for free, it's not actually free. A, they're going to have to take time out of their day to show you how to do all this shit that they wouldn't give a normal employee. When you're training an employee, you're training someone that's this qualified to go from here to being here. When you're working with an intern, you're working with someone who's like here or here. So if I hire someone, even if I hire them at the lowest 15 or 18 an hour, they kind of know, they know like the basics of how to talk to a customer. They know the basics of electronics. They know the basics of disassembling and reassembling something. They may not know everything. So there's this much onboarding work for them to do. I need you to be here. You're here. Employee. When you're hiring an intern, you're hiring someone that's like here. And when you're hiring someone over here, because that's, again, if someone's willing to work for free, they're probably here. That's a lot of fucking work. You're going to put in thousands of dollars worth of time in and of itself into training them. And they're probably going to break, whether it's relationships or physical hardware or software bugs. They're probably going to break thousands of dollars worth of shit that a normal employee wouldn't break. So there is a cost to it. And when people would show up and they would say, you don't understand, Lewis. You need to give me a paid internship. An unpaid internship. It's not going to cost you anything. So there's no reason for you to say no. What used to bother me is that sense of entitlement, which is, you don't even understand. Eli, the computer guy, used to have a video on this. He probably privated it because he has better sense than I do, about how interns are free. It was something about free labor where he was saying free labor is worse than nothing because it can potentially break things. It can potentially cost you clients. It can cost you expensive equipment. It can cost you... There's a lot it can cost you. And I think people need to go into it understanding that they can potentially cost their employer a lot of money. Because if you walk into Avatar Studios and you go in there with the full understanding that if you say something wrong, you could easily cost them a $90,000 sale, or you could break a $50,000 tape machine in a terrible way. If you understand that that's where they're coming from, then they're more likely to hire you, they're more likely to work with you, and they're more likely to trust you because at least they know that you're on the same you're on the same field, you understand it. Whereas if you walk in there and you go, well, I'm working for free, so clearly you should just appreciate it, they're probably going to tell you to buzz off and not trust you with anything. Watching for 3 years since getting a job repairing SMT boards. Now I'm their trainer for $15.65. They wonder why I went IT there. Yeah. No cookie. Yeah, I always tell Erica no cookie. Erica never gets a cookie. Thank you, Machiavel. I love you. Please adopt me as a paid adult child. Okay, maybe internships should be illegal. Never mind. I changed my mind. Cookie. Daniel Monsanto gave you $5 for a cookie. But I can't give you a cookie.
What did you say, $5 for a cookie?
Acoustic Hill says, I really enjoy your talks and insight. You shed a good light on topics. Respect. Thank you.
Thank you. I had the cookie right here.
No cookie.
I was eating a cookie, too.
No cookie. Erica, no cookie. Minimum wage equals minimum effort. The other thing that, people that don't understand is that who lean on the conservative side of the minimum wage issue is that minimum wage will get you minimum effort. So if I pay someone $6 an hour, I have the right to expect $6 worth of work. For the first 6 months that I worked at Modell's, I was willing to show that I am willing to add to the bottom line and make sure that your department makes more money. I'm willing to go into the gondolas, take the shit out, go to the 1970s interface, find it, put a barcode on it so that it could sell. I did not want merchandise to be lost or unsold in my department. I wanted it to work properly. And then I realized I wasn't going anywhere from $6. And then they started getting what they were paying for. And one of the reasons that I will not pay someone that rate is because I don't want to hire someone who is as bad a worker as Lewis is once he realizes that his job is a dead-end $6 an hour job. Is he not going to read the $100 comment? I read that comment and I spent 10 minutes replying to it, but I don't think that you listened to it. That kind of makes me sad. That was my only ask in the beginning of the video. My only ask. Ah, troll. Troll, that's not what I said. Damn you, strawman bastard. Hiss. All right. See what we have in comments here. Bye-bye, troll. Let's see. Why paying thousands when you can learn for free on YouTube? Well, learning for free on YouTube used to not always be an option. I remember the first time I YouTubed how to solder a QFN. The only video was with this training module. And you would have, the chip would go in the middle, and then there would be flux that you would put in tracks. And you would put solder on the track, and then you would push it, and then it would end up all the way at the chip. And it's like, that is not what it's like soldering a QFN on an Apple product with a bunch of little resistors all next to each other. That's just not how this works. What do you think about the forced wearing of masks? I think it's sad because you have places like Japan where you don't have to force people, but they just do it because they know it's the smart thing to do, and then they have a death rate that's virtually the lowest in the world. And then you have the U.S. where it's a political issue, and then a cultural war issue, and then I won't do that because the people that told me to are the people I don't like. And then we have like the shit death rate that we do. One of the things that's interesting is that in Japan, they didn't have to use force for a lot of elements. Like the populace generally volunteered to do what they knew would be the right thing to do. And here we did, like, it just kind of made me sad. It kind of made me sad to compare this to Japan. You can't pay more than minimum wage when you run 72 gyms. Okay, that's funny.
I see people want a cookie montage. Here,
No cookie.
I'll share some cookies with you guys.
Check your text messages. Erica, you know where my phone is? Where's my phone?
Your phone?
Shit.
Oh, here's your phone.
My.
Wait, you gotta have a cookie first.
One thing I'd push back on is your anecdotal evidence. You intern for ethical people or company. Today's employment environment sees most people exploiting labor. Yes and no. So at Avatar, it was an intern mill. Like, it was what you made of it. It's very easy at Avatar Studios to have gone through the 3-month internship process, learned nothing, and been told, thank you, come again. It's one of those things where there's a lot of and the first place I interned at before I got to Avatar was way worse. Again, literally cleaning duct work and all sorts of shit. The experience that I got at the first shit studio allowed me to at least know how to present myself to Avatar. Because the first month at the shit studio, it was a shit studio, so they got what they were paying for when they got me. But like, that gave me just enough that I knew how to present myself at Avatar. And then at Avatar, I was able to learn enough. But like, it wasn't really the best of environments. He says, blame the exploiters for why you can't give the same opportunity afforded to you. The thing is, the world is always going to be I don't like going by that specific mentality because let's say I apply that to right to repair. Let's say you break, I fix does a poor board repair. Does that mean that I shouldn't have the ability to have a schematic, or that I shouldn't have the ability to buy the parts that I need to do my job? There's something where I don't like the idea that because someone else did something shitty, that nobody can have an unpaid internship now where they learn something because these companies exploited people. It seems like a similar train of thought. Fuck you, plague. It seems like a similar train of thought to, well, this place did a shitty repair, so therefore I don't think people should open the phones and things like that. I do think that, and this kind of ties back to the whole thing with, like, Japan versus here. Like, there's a lot of stuff that they don't have to mandate when they're dealing with the coronavirus because people just do the right things naturally, whereas here, there's more heavy-handed mandates as a result of people doing the wrong shit. People do the wrong shit that results in more heavy-handed mandates. More heavy-handed mandates means more people rebelling. More people rebelling means more heavy-handed mandates. And you kind of have that circle that goes on and on and on. Okay, I missed a couple. Let me read. Name a good soldering station for a beginner. The TS100 is kind of decent. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's cheap as shit, and you can use it with a laptop charger. So if you have a laptop charger, you plug it into a TS100, and now you have a soldering iron, and you buy a Hacko tip, $100 or less, you have a soldering iron. Hundreds of links leading to thousands, masks don't work. I usually respond with a list of 71 that masks do work, and yeah, Japan is a clear example that they do. I usually have this readily available, but here I don't. But it's been posted many times in my comments before. Hey, Lewis, I'm a sophomore in college and currently in my third major. It feels like I'm just running in circles with the same board results. Any advice? I think that you need to leave college if you're on your third major and spend some time either volunteering or working somewhere else for a year or two and then figure out what you want to do. I was going to become a therapist, and obviously that's not what I was supposed to do with my life, and that would have been a really weird thing to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do until I started doing things. And even when I worked at the studio, the place closed. I needed something to work on Logic with. I got a MacBook. The MacBook came broken, so I fixed it. Oh shit, that's a job. I just lost my job, and I did this. Wow, this can make $200 doing this? Oh, let's try this again. And it kind of became a thing that I was doing. So you kind of have to get into the world to figure out where your place in it is. And the problem in college is that you're not really in the world yet, so you're assuming that your place is going to be here. But then you get out into the world and you realize, fuck, I hate it here. I want to be there. And I really could have used this education to help me get there, but now you have the education that helps you be here. So I think spending a few years in the world before you go to college is a very important thing to do. People getting rushed directly from the high school to college pipeline, I don't think is ideal. And I understand why people want to do that, because nobody wants to go back to having homework in school again. Like, once you have the freedom of not being in our current modern education system, you never want to go back. But maybe that says something about the modern education system more so than it does the lack of wisdom in leaving and to go out into the real world. One day, I would like to think by myself just like you. Any advice to start thinking by yourself? You don't want to think like me. No, definitely don't think like me. Read a book by Jim Camp called Start With No. It's really good when it comes to advocating for yourself and negotiating. And it's kind of, I know it's a book about negotiating, like I get it, but it really does have a lot to do with a lot of aspects of life. My M2 Evo hasn't failed yet. You said they failed. Why hasn't mine failed yet? False advertising. Because you have the 1 terabyte one. You don't have the 2 terabyte one. Get the 2 terabyte one. Someone should make a no cookie montage. Could you pay the intern for learning and they would pay you for the training? I wouldn't really, I don't know. I wouldn't want to, see, that's a hard thing, because if you pay someone to learn, if someone's going to pay you to learn, then it's a class at that point, you know? At that point it's a class. I don't think it's an internship. And if you're paying someone, you know, the full proper wage that you have to pay someone, then it's kind of seems more like a job than an internship. Michael Q says hello. Michael Q has been there since the days of 100 subscribers. Everybody say hello in the chat to Michael Q. Props and respect for the fact that you have still stuck around listening to my shit for all these years. Let's read the ones I forgot to read. Do you give good customers a lollipop, or do they cost too much? You're reading too many Yelp reviews, man. I don't give any customer a lollipop. No customer gets a lollipop. I'm assuming that's a euphemism. I'm glad I went straight to college. It was hard enough at that age. Doing it in my 30s is insane. Yeah, I would never... I would never want to go back to college. But the thing is, like, is it a great system? Are you a furry, and what do you think of furry culture? I've met 2 brands of furries. I've met furries that have an intellect that is like several levels above that of normal people, that are on another level entirely, doing crazy shit that are going to change the world and make it a better place. And then I've met people that are furries that are just batshit insane. I have not met anybody who's an in-between. To be clear, I haven't gone out of my way to meet furries, so I have a very small sample size. Damn you, plague. I tested negative, but still coughing. The education system sucks, says Nova. Don't get me started.
I got the cats all trained to get greenies now. They just want to stay in the kitchen to get more greenies.
All right, I'm about to get out of here. Those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts. If less people were abused free interns, If less people abused free interns or minimum wage labor, we probably wouldn't have laws against it. If we didn't have laws against it, then there'd be more opportunity for people in general. Shitty people tend to ruin everything. Try not to be a shitty person. Try to be a part of the change you want to see in the world. Like, the reasons that I don't feel comfortable taking people on who can do good work at minimum wage is because I will never, for the rest of my life, forget the experiences that I had at one of the shitty internships, and also working at Model Sporting Goods. At the same time, I really don't want to throw away the opportunities that I had that helped me get somewhere. Because for all I know, like, if I wasn't able to get that internship at the Film Center studio, the shitty one, and then at Avatar afterwards, there's a really good chance that I would have been let go from Model Sporting Goods when they went bankrupt this year after 15 years of loyal $6 an hour minimum wage service with no skills. Because like it really was that one little jump that helped me get everything else started. And I wouldn't want to rob someone else of that. Anyway, I'm out of here. I'm ready for the comment section. Lewis is for. I'm ready for the comments. I'm ready. Lewis is for. Lewis is for unpaid internships. Lewis is not for labor laws. Lewis is evil. Lewis is a greedy employer who wants to exploit people. Come at me, bro. Come at me, comment section. All right. See you all in the next video. That's it for today. And as always, hope you learned something. It's been a pleasure talking to you as always. See you all.